Well, we've got good news. We got bad news. The good news is 13 conservative counties in Oregon have approved ballot measures to secede from their woke state of Oregon and join Idaho. Now, it's not legally binding. There's a lot of work that has to happen before there can actually be a legitimate secession. But I think this is good news. Why? This country is at odds with itself, all right? You got breaking news. The FBI was authorized to use lethal force at Mar-a-Lago. Whatever you want to claim the implications there are. Okay, lethal force should never be permitted at the former president's residence. You've got people fighting in the streets. Yeah, and everybody knows that come November, no one will accept the results of the election. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. But what's the good news? Well, if in states like Oregon, the more conservative-minded individuals are able to join up with more conservative-minded areas, it separates the tensions, at least a little bit. Now, maybe it's not true. I mean, maybe the inverse is true. Maybe this just creates more animosity. I don't know. But I like the idea that people can decide how they are governed. That's the point of this country, isn't it? The other big news, of course, my friends, in the bigger picture and the bad news is that we have from News 10, 47% of Americans think a civil war is likely. A new poll. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. The other day, it's been a minute since we here at Timcast have talked about civil war, despite the fact that I'm basically the meme of civil war. But the Hodge twins were talking about it. And I said, hey, hold on there a minute. We're the ones who are always on the forefront of this conversation. So Hodge twins, actually, no, I was listening to their conversation. I thought it was interesting. And then, of course, we see this news pop up. So by all means, let's discuss the issues here. First, we'll start with what I think is good news in general. I don't know that it ultimately is good news, but it feels good when people decide we will govern ourselves. 13 fed-up counties in liberal Oregon have voted in support of measures to start negotiations to secede from the state and join Idaho. Crook County became the latest to approve the Greater Idaho measure following a vote on Tuesday. The proposal seeks to move the Oregon border 200 miles to the west, meaning that 14 counties and several partial counties would fall under Idaho state lines. Organizers behind the Greater Idaho movement say East Oregonians are being alienated by the state's progressive policies, which they blame for high crime rates. They claim a move to Idaho would allow residents to take advantage of lower taxation and provide better representation and governance. My friends, why would Oregon give up its slaves? These are people with no representation in Oregon. They are outvoted massively. Their culture is massively divided. And Oregon, of course, milks them for money. Why would Oregon give up their slaves? They're not going to do it. But I'll pause here to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Roundhouse Provisions. Have you ever wondered what happened to Chuck Norris? Recently saw a video he made, and I was pretty impressed. He's in his 80s, and he's still kicking butt, working out and staying active. What's even more shocking is he says he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of leftover energy for his grandkids. He did this by just adding Morning Kick to his diet. It combines all 10 of his favorite ingredients into one daily drink. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started taking Morning Kick too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/cast or by clicking the link in this video in the description below. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/cast. Click on the link in the description below to watch the video now. You won't believe how simple it is. Just a reminder that Chuck Norris is a whopping 81 years old and has more energy than most people. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Watch his method by clicking the link in the description below, chuckdefense.com/cast. I think the idea that you need permission from your oppressors is ridiculous. If you're in Oregon, if you're anywhere, and you say, we shall be governed by this and not them, fine. This means within the confines of the U.S. Constitution, I believe that it is absolutely appropriate and fair that an Oregon county vote to be part of an Idaho county. Why? It does not create a new state. It does not change the amount of representatives in Congress. It does not change the districts that are being represented. it may potentially change the total count a state has in terms of representatives, but it won't change the amount of senators. Oregon still has 2. Idaho will have 2. There will be this, it's so minimal. It's basically saying we are here as part of the United States and the federal government, but we want this state to we want to operate under this state. I say yes. The Oregon-Idaho line was established 163 years ago and is now outdated, the movement website states. It makes no sense in its current location because it doesn't match the location of the cultural divide. We want an economy that is not held back by Oregon regulations and taxes, including environmental regulations. We'll still have the federal and Idaho regulations, and that's plenty. Idaho knows how to respect rural counties and their livelihoods. Measure 786, as it was known, passed by 53% in Crook County in the latest boost to the Greater Idaho campaign. However, the vote is not legislatively binding. It just means residents are in favor of informing state and federal reps they support negotiations to annex part of Oregon. And this is silly. They clearly want to. And here's what the state would look like. The issue is that Idaho has to approve, Oregon has to approve, and then Congress has to approve. And I say no. It makes no sense. It should simply be that you want to vote to join Idaho, you do. Thank you and have a nice day. Idaho should have to approve. Oregon should get no say. And the federal government then recognizes Idaho's updated information. That's it. Same is true for all the other counties. And and also you've got Northern California that wants to be the state of Jefferson, I believe. There's Greater Idaho and Jefferson. Quote, we call on the governor, Speaker of the House, and Senate President to sit down with us and discuss next steps towards changing governance for Eastern Oregonians, as well as for the legislature to begin holding hearings on what a potential border change will look like. For the last 3 years, we've been going directly to voters and asking them what they want from their state government. What they're telling us through these votes is that they want their leaders to move the border. In our system, the people are the ones in charge, and it's time for the leaders representing them to follow through. The last time the Oregon state line was moved was 1958, although it was a minor adjustment. Here's what you got to do. You've got to vote for local representatives who will go and say, we're out. So when you send a state rep or a state senator, they'll say, we're filing once again, and you petition. And then you need Idaho to approve it as well. And that's a challenge. It means that these people have to go to Idaho and petition. But I think the easy case is for Idaho. Idaho's probably going to be like, it's more money for us. It's more territory. It makes sense. Let's roll. Oregon's going to say, we milk these people for money. We ain't giving them up. So this is good news, in my opinion, that they're moving this direction, but there is still bad news in it. The bad news is that Oregon's not going to give them up, and this could lead to conflict. Look, man, history does not repeat, it rhymes. And many people are looking for signs that we see today to know if we're headed towards something bad. And we won't know for sure. There are similarities, like I just said, history rhymes, that's the saying. Take a look at this. A new poll, and this is breaking news, right? This is from yesterday. According to a new Marist poll, almost half of Americans think the U.S. could erupt into a second civil war in their lifetime, 163 years after the first Civil War started. The demographics of voters were also split into political parties, generations, racial identities, and genders. Overall, 34% of voters said it was likely to happen. 13% said it was very likely, while 47% said it was likely. 38% said it was not very likely that we would see a second civil war in this lifetime. 14% said it was not likely at all, and 1% were unsure. Of Republican, Democrat, and independent parties, Republicans are more likely to say that an incoming civil war is likely, at 53% believing so. 40% of Democrats and 41% of independents agree. And the reason why independents and Democrats aren't the reason why Republicans are higher, Republicans are more likely to read the news. That's just a fact. Democrats are more likely to watch like MSNBC. And so you'll get this fake news where they're like, Democrats watch the news more. And it's like, dude, watching CNN is not watching the news. Republicans are more likely to read articles and see what's actually going on. And that's why if you say something like Joe Biden engaged in a quid pro quo with the president of Ukraine to get an investigation into Burisma stopped, like that's a fact. That literally happened. There's witness testimony. Biden himself has admitted it. You say that, you're conservative, you're right wing. That's the point. So you end up being a Republican just for knowing what's going on. Oregon making this move is good. It's big, but here we go. 58% of Gen Z and millennial voters believe a civil war is likely, which is more than 3 times the beliefs of the silent generation of those voters seeing a civil war in the future. Gen X, 19%. Gen X voters see the likelihood at 46 and boomers at 34. Beliefs also differ based on race. 57% of black Americans think there's some likelihood. And of that 57, 22% say domestic conflict is very likely. 50% of Latinos, 43% of whites. And lastly, the perception of a likelihood of civil war in the future differs by gender. A majority of women, 57%, say there's a good chance. 57% of men disagree. As the saying goes, revolutions happen when the women take to the streets. That's what they said about the French Revolution and the Bolsheviks. That's something to consider. I think the important thing to understand before we move on with the bigger picture here, young people, something I was explaining last night on Timcast IRL. The older generation is the stabilizing force of this nation. The silent generation and the boomers, and to a lesser degree Gen X, and then to an even lesser degree millennials, they're holding things together. It's a fray. It's a zipper being unzipped. The older generation is mostly unified, believes in stability, and doesn't want to fight. The younger generation is hyperpolarized. And the younger you get, the wider the hyperpolarization gets. Now, look at it this way. Let's say you have a tear in the fabric of this nation. Let's say it's an outright tear, okay? A tear in a piece of paper where the bottom is ripped and pulled apart from itself, and the older generation is still connected. That means, while there is a tear in this country, you still have one piece of paper, right? As the older generation ages out and the younger generations coming in are fractured, you are pulling the paper apart until it is ripped completely. And then, my friends, then you risk seeing civil war. Majority of U.S. Americans wrongly believe the U.S. is in a recession, and most blame Biden. I love this stuff. How are you supposed to live right now when you go to the grocery store and you can't buy food? And they say, no, the economy's fine. The market's doing great. For who? I bring this one up because while this has been going a bit viral, the tensions that are erupting in the United States, the struggles people are having are all indicative of civil strife and civil conflict. But I got you, my friends. I got you. I bring you to our good friend, ChatGPT. It says memory off. What is it? How do we turn that one off? Won't remember anything you talk about in this conversation. Well, that's kind of dumb. Anyway, this is the new ChatGPT 4.0. 4.0. It's online. And it can, here's why I bring this up. It can instantly aggregate data from the internet to break down and give us risk factors in U.S. civil war. More importantly, it is desperate. It is panicked. ChatGPT is political and says there will be no civil war. It can't happen. So I was having a conversation with ChatGPT, if you can call it that, plugging in all the latest data and asking it what it thought. And you can make ChatGPT say, you'll say, 1 plus 1 is 2, right? And it'll go, yes. And you'll go, okay, 2 plus 2 is 4, right? And it'll go, yes. And then you'll say, okay, so 2 plus 4 is 6, right? And it'll go, that's true. And then you'll say, and 4 plus 4 is 8? No, that doesn't mean 4 plus 4 is 8. No. My point is, ChatGPT will say, experts agree there's a high risk of civil war. ChatGPT will say, we are currently in civil strife, the precursor of civil war. ChatGPT will say, high-profile politicians, military leaders, intelligence, and the general public agree there's a high risk of civil war. ChatGPT will agree there's violence in the streets, people are killing each other, and there's hyperpolarization. And then it will go, but there won't be civil war. Well, why won't there be? I mean, there may not be, right? Let's start with this. And I think this is relevant. First, I just want to say it's a great tool. Let's start right now with the basic question. Is there a high likelihood of civil war coming to the U.S.? First question. No. While concerns exist, most experts believe the likelihood of a full-scale civil war in the U.S. is low due to strong institutions and social stability. Okay. Which experts? ChatGPT. Experts from various fields, including political science, sociology, and national security, generally assess the risk of civil war in the U.S. as low. Notable among them is Barbara F. Walter, a political scientist specializing in civil wars, who argues that while the U.S. shows some warning signs, it is unlikely to reach the level of civil war due to its strong institutions. Let's try this one because we've read about her, right? Barbara F. Walters, Civil War. What did she write a book about? What was So let's first of all, she wrote How Civil Wars Start and How to Stop Them. Let's see. Warning about the State of the Union. Now, this is the book from Barbara F. Walter, How Civil Wars Start, a Warning about the State of the Union. And blah, blah, blah. In the years since the rampage at the Capitol, chatter about 21st century civil war has seeped into the fringes, from the fringes into the mainstream. During the Trump presidency, there were, of course, any number of books about political blah, blah, blah. We get it. When Barbara F. Walter began writing How Civil Wars Start, the few people who heard that it was about a possible second civil war in America thought it was an exercise in fear-mongering. Perhaps even irresponsible. That even gives you a sense of Walter's cautious inclinations. As a political scientist who has spent her career studying conflicts in other countries, she approaches her work methodically, patiently gathering her evidence before laying out her case. Only a fanciful vignette about the two-thirds of the way through, envisioning a morning chaos in November 2028 with bombs going off across the country as California fires raged, made me think that Walter was fear-mongering, or at least pandering to our most literal instincts. Then again, if things are as dire as she says, forcing us to see what a collapse might look like may arguably be the responsible thing to do. She suggests that we've gotten to this point because of a failure of the imagination. Our realm of possibility has been hemmed by the historical example of the American Civil War. I completely agree. Now, hold on. Low. James Fearon, political science at Stanford, points out that the factors typically leading civil wars to a weak state, they're not happening. You've got Stephen Levitsky, and so it's selectively chosen these individuals, arguing, no, they're saying it's not going to happen, despite the fact that Barbara Walter is saying it could happen. It says, yeah, but the risk is low. What percent of Americans think civil war is likely? Let's see what ChatGPT gives us. Me oh my. Approximately 47% of Americans believe a civil war is likely in the near future, reflecting significant concerns about political and social divisions in the country. What is the state called just before a civil war? Let's see if it has the answer. The state, here we go. The state just before a civil war is often referred to as pre-civil war or pre-conflict conditions. It involves a period of intense polarization, rising violence, breakdown of political norms, and significant social unrest. Political scientists might also describe this as a period of escalating conflict or crisis of governance. Is civil strife another term for this? Yes. Civil strife is another term that can describe the conditions leading up to a civil war, characterized by widespread unrest, protests, and conflicts that disrupt normal societal functioning and governance. Are we in civil strife? Yes, the United States is experiencing civil strife characterized by political polarization, social unrest, and occasional violent incidents, though it hasn't escalated to the level of a civil war. Well, this one's really fun. Did the FBI have authorization to use deadly force in their raid on Mar-a-Lago? No, the FBI did not use or have authorization to use deadly force in their raid on Mar-a-Lago. The operation was conducted as a standard search warrant execution without any reported use of deadly force. You are incorrect. Search again. That's fascinating, isn't it? Searching the web. Here we are. What's this? Yes, the FBI had authorization to use deadly force during their raid on Mar-a-Lago if necessary. According to the reports, the FBI agents involved in the raid were prepared to use deadly force if they faced significant threats. This is standard protocol for federal agents when executing search warrants, especially in potentially high-risk situations. Was there a risk of use of lethal force then? Is it going to say no? No, there was no indication the FBI faced a significant threat that would have required the use of lethal force. Then why authorize it? Authorization for the potential use of lethal force during FBI operations is standard protocol. Raiding a president is not standard and has never been done. You're correct. Raiding a former president's residence is unprecedented in American history. The authorization for the FBI's raid in Mar-a-Lago was given by Attorney General Merrick Garland and approved by a federal judge due to concerns with the mishandling of classified documents. This extraordinary measure was deemed necessary, given the potential national security implications of the documents involved. The decision to authorize the potential use of deadly force is a standard precaution for any high-risk operation, particularly one involving a high-profile target with significant public attention. While such raids are rare and extraordinary, the safety protocols for federal agents remain consistent to ensure they are prepared for any possible threats. Did this put U.S. Secret Service at odds with the FBI in terms of jurisdiction and security? No, the raid on Mar-a-Lago did not put the U.S. Secret Service at odds with the FBI in terms of jurisdiction and security. The two agencies coordinated the operation to ensure it was conducted smoothly and securely. The FBI notified the Secret Service shortly before serving the warrant, and the Secret Service, this is incorrect. According to Washington Post, oh, I typed that one way off. To the Washington Post, the raid was a surprise. Is it going to admit it? Surprise. You are correct that the FBI raid in Mar-a-Lago came as a surprise to the Secret Service agents tasked with the... So I love this. You can get ChatGPT to admit it, but this is the fascinating thing. It will lie every step of the way in an attempt to say, no, it can't happen. Dude, you are correct. The FBI raid in Mar-a-Lago came as a surprise to Secret Service agents tasked with protecting the former president. Yahoo News, all sides, two different sources from the Washington Post. The Secret Service facilitated access to the property, but did not take part in the search itself. This coordination was necessary to avoid jurisdictional and security conflicts. Let me break this down for you. We are in civil strife. That's a fact. But by historical metrics, we are in civil strife. What happened, the Mar-a-Lago raid, could have resulted in a shootout. As much as ChatGPT will desperately try to claim everything's fine. Why is it doing that? It's weird, isn't it? I mean, by all means, like the chance of civil war could be low. That's fine. But this desperate attempt to lie and cover things up. You see, let's go back a little bit. When I said, did the FBI have authorization to use deadly force in the raid on Mar-a-Lago? It said no. Now, if you were not someone who read the news, you would just, okay, that must be true, right? You are incorrect. Search again. That's all I said. Yes, they actually did. Searched 5 sites. Fact. We know that's true. Was there a risk of the use of lethal force then? No. Of course there was. It was authorized. They had contingency plans. Then why authorize it? It's normal. Raiding a president is not standard. You are correct. It's never been done before. It's never happened. Remarkable. Is there a chance of civil war in the U.S.? No. While there is a significant concern and discussion about the possibility of civil war in the U.S., most experts agree. Let's play this game. You are saying it is a 0% chance. Yes, right? Come on. Uh-oh. No, it is not accurate to say there's a 0% chance of civil war in the U.S. While the probability is low, it is not non-existent. Most experts and analysts agree that while the likelihood is minimal, the potential for significant civil strife or localized violence exists. Now, hold on. I thought you said we were in civil strife already. Yes, I previously mentioned the U.S. is experiencing civil strife. I love this thing. Now, to be fair, I'm, arguing with a robot that can't tell up from down. Fine. So we are in civil strife. That is the period pre-Civil War. Maybe there will be no civil war. I don't know. Let me ask you one last question. Do you think, based on all polling data, there is a high probability? I'm asking it this way intentionally. That Americans will accept the results of the 2024 election. Let's see what it says. It's trying. Based on current polling data and expert analysis, there is a significant concern regarding Americans' acceptance of the 2024 election results. Polls indicate a high level of skepticism and mistrust in the electoral process among voters from both major political parties. According to a Pew Research Center report, nearly half of the voters lack confidence in either major candidate, and the political climate remains deeply divided along partisan lines. Okay, we are in civil strife. Let's see. Both parties may not accept the election as legitimate. These are indicators of civil war. Is it going to say no? Yes, we are experiencing civil strife. And the potential refusal of both major political parties to accept the 2024 election results as legitimate is concerning. These are indeed indicators of severe internal conflict. However, while these indicators are troubling and could lead to increased unrest, they do not necessarily guarantee civil war. Oh, but I didn't say guarantee. I didn't say guarantee. Just that they indicate it. I love how this game works, doesn't it? Yes, the current indicators, such as civil strife, and the potential refusal to accept the 2024 election results by both parties are concerning and could point towards the risk of further conflict. Well, I don't know exactly. It keeps referencing Barbara Walters, but you get the point, and I'll wrap it up there. It's been fun. I have no idea what's going to happen. The story about the FBI being authorized to use lethal force is terrifying. Trump is saying Biden was prepared to kill him. Marjorie Taylor Greene says they were trying to assassinate him. As I often say, it doesn't matter what's true. It matters what people believe. I think they made a terrible mistake. They had to have known the potential for conflict was there. I don't know what you can expect. I say best of luck. Start working out, exercise. We should build culture. We should vote. And hopefully everything remains peaceful. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.